The Phantom of the Opera is very, very special to me. Well, the Lon Chaney version, that is. Many years ago, back in the 80s, I was asked if I would like to pitch to do some music for this particular film. And I went along to Hammer Films, which were in Wardour Street, and met a guy called Dick Randall. I can remember him sitting behind the desk, big fat cigar, the typical sort of like film mogul. And I sat there in front of him and he said, "There's a lot of people pitching for this, it's a good film." And I said, "Well, what exactly do you want?" And he said, "Well, I want you to look at the film and come back to me and tell me how you would deal with it. We've already got people who said they'll do big orchestral things, and people who come and said they will do almost like folk things or original dance things, music kind of things to go with it." I went, "What?" He went, "Yep. So come back, tell me what you think." So I came back about a week or so later and I sat there. Now I knew that there were some pretty big names going after this particular job. So I didn't really think there was much of a chance, but I thought, at least I got my foot in the door with Hammer Films. And sat there with Dick and he said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, my idea is to have 3 different voices. One to take the part of Christina, and I've got a very good girl singer in mind called Chrissie Hammond, who can do anything from sort of rock and roll to ballads to classical. I said, I've got a rock singer called Ashley Holt, who I want to do the part of all the male parts, with the exception of the Phantom, because I want him to be a bit of a rock and roller. And I said, and an opera singer, opera tenor, called Ramon Remedios, who I want to take the part of the Phantom, so that when you're watching the film, musically it can carry you through, but also the different voices can tell you where we're going and who's doing what." And he said, "Okay, all right." So off I went, didn't think any more about it, and a week later he called me up and said, "You got the job." So I was pretty thrilled, except when I first saw it, because I realised that it was incredibly long. It was over 80 minutes long as it was, apart from all the additives and things that had to go with it. Now when you do a normal film, of which I've been lucky enough to do 20 or 30 or so, what happens is about, I suppose, 20 to 30 minutes worth is music, of which there's a lot of incidental music and other things that goes, which is just padding stuff. But this was 88 minutes worth of solid music that had to go along and tell the story. So I mapped the whole thing out initially in the different sections and the different parts, wrote the different parts of music, what I wanted for the different singers. But then the huge problem was I couldn't get anything to time to come at the right cut-off points. And then through a bit of research, I discovered that the great silent movie editors cut to music. So it was just a matter then of finding the time signatures that they worked with, which took a bit of time. But once we found them for the different sections, suddenly we were really off and running. I put the whole thing together, did all the recording at my studio that I had at the Isle of Man in the time. I brought Ashley Holt over, Chrissie Hammond over, I brought Ramon Remedios over. I had a band in doing other parts. We added lots of percussion, lots of different things. We put it together and I was thrilled to bits. It actually took 3 times longer than I'd actually bargained for, and actually used up every single penny of the budget. So nothing was wasted. I presented it to Dick Randall, who absolutely loved it. And I went to a screening, a private screening, which was held in London in Wardour Street, and everybody was thrilled with the outcome, including me, I have to say. The one good thing I did as part of the deal was retaining the rights for the music, because I made a CD, separate CD to go with it, called Phantom Power, of which some of it really should be done again, but most of it's pretty good. Then what happened was bizarre, because shortly afterwards it did appear as a video, and it did appear in America, I know, as a video, and I heard after Hammer went bust that somebody had bought it. But that was the last I ever heard, that somebody had got the DVD, but then it disappeared. It completely disappeared off the face of the earth. And since that date, I have been searching for a copy. I've tried everything, appeals on the website, appeals in music papers, all sorts of things. Has anybody got a copy of Phantom of the Opera, of the version that I did? And then I was doing the Slapstick Festival in Bristol, and somebody said, "You know, it's just appeared on YouTube." I said, "Well, there's loads of the Lon Chaney film in it, but I can't find one with me." They said, "It's there," and they gave me a link. And I looked and it was a really good condition. And I thought, hey, it does exist. And I was speaking to my partner in crime, Rob Ayling, and I said, you know what, it'd be so nice to get hold of a copy of this and then sort of try and correct it, put bits right and tidy it up in lots of areas and put it out. It's something that I'm really proud of from my past that I did. And I think that it just shows what you can actually do with silent movies, because one of the plans was, Dick Randall, who sadly is no longer with us, he liked the idea so much, he said, I've got loads of these silent movies you can do the same sort of thing to. And I still believe you can do this kind of thing with loads of silent movies. And it doesn't detract from the silent movie at all. In fact, I think it enhances. And in fact, if you don't like the soundtrack, you turn it off anyway and just watch the silent movie. But I think it enhances and helps to carry you along. So, at last, we've got The Phantom of the Opera, Lorne Chaney, and my music.